Welcome to Satsang.
Hello, Vishrant. Can you please talk about the topic, the price for enlightenment?
The price for enlightenment. Well, there is no real price to be who you are. We are all beingness. We are all truth. We're all everything. It's just that some people aren't aware of that. And because they're not aware of that, they want it. They hunger for it. They seek it out. They search it. They try to get it and they miss it. And so they go and find themselves, they read a book on the subject, or they find themselves a guru who's talking about the subject, and they get interested. And at some point they realize that awareness is what we truly are, because all teachers teach that. We're just pure consciousness, pure awareness, and you get an intellectual understanding of that we are pure awareness. And then the quest begins, well, how do we discover that we are pure awareness? And pure awareness is always here, it's just not aware of itself. And so there's a certain problem in that. And so the seeker starts looking, and you find that the thing that's in the way is the constant dreaming. And when we have a look at, well, what's actually dreaming, it's the mind, it's the I. And we get an understanding that the obstacle that's in the way of awareness being aware of itself and staying aware of itself is that awareness is locked on to this dreaming, this identification of being a somebody, which is based on reference points, which are also a dream. So the price, if there is such a thing as a price, is the removal of the obstacles that are in the way of awareness being aware of itself. And these obstacles show up as basically anything that contracts us, anything that takes us into lower consciousness, anything that takes us into dream, really. And so you go to a monastery or an ashram and they'll teach you how to meditate. They'll teach you how to reclaim reality, because being in meditation is being aware of what's real. Reclaim reality from the dream that you're lost in. But people believe their dream to be real. They think they are somebody. They think they have a future. They think they have a past. But this is all thoughts, not reality. There's something that's aware of all of this. And it's that's aware that we're looking for. It's that's aware that awareness needs to become aware of for enlightenment to occur. And so the price, you remove everything that's in the way. The mind actually dedicates itself to reality, to truth, instead of to itself. And the mind in most human beings is dedicated to itself, is dedicated to its survival, dedicated to its future, dedicated to a whole pile of dreams that aren't real. But as long as we're dedicated to dreams, well, we're going to live as dreams, because that's where our awareness is going to be. We always live where our awareness is at. So if our awareness is on our dreams, our mind, we live as that. If awareness is on awareness, we live as beingness. We live as truth. And that's the potential for all human beings. It's the only reason I can see in being here is to wake up to our true nature. But the mind doesn't want to give anything up for it, not really. It wants that, and it wants to keep everything it's got. It wants to keep all its dreams. It wants to keep everything it's attached to. And that doesn't actually work, because as long as it's holding on to things, awareness is going to be locked onto it and not on itself. And so the price is everything. You can have everything in the world you want, but you can't be attached to it. The attachment keeps us locked in lower consciousness. And so the Buddha had his monks and nuns become celibate, put on saffron robes and have a begging bowl and become beggars. They may have had sandals, but they didn't have a great deal. He was taking all the things they may get attached to away from them. And that works to some degree. But the truth is, if we're not attached to things, we can have anything and be free. It's our attachment that causes the problems. And so you could say the price is letting go of our attachments, so awareness can find itself and stay on itself without coming back to something contracting because we're frightened of losing something. And so those who are getting close to awakening get to a point where they realize that, well, you can serve the mind or you can serve truth, but you can't really serve both. And so those who wake up serve truth, serve reality. And in the service of reality, in the service of truth, the mind stays stable because it doesn't want to attract attention back to itself. So what is it that you don't want to give up for truth? What is it that you want to hang on to? Have a look. What is it you're attached to? And you'll see what's in the way. And there's nothing wrong. I'll say it again. There's nothing wrong with having things, having relationships, having children, having businesses, having objects, property. It's the attachment to them that is the problem. Let go, let go, let go, and be free. And have a look at what you serve. And that's not a bad idea. Have a look. What do you actually serve? Keeping in mind that those who are free serve truth. Any questions? Any statements? Any challenges to the teachings here today?
The first question is, some days I feel a bursting desire to give up everything for truth, and some days I get lost in the mundane again. What could help me to not lose track of the goal ever again?
Waking up helps you not lose track of the goal ever again. And I was talking about service before. And the service is from the mind's perspective. What does the mind serve? But the truth is, we're not the mind and we're not the body. It's just that if the mind is trained to serve truth, it will serve truth. If it is not trained to serve truth, it'll probably serve itself. And so you want to wake up, turn awareness on awareness, and have the mind fall in love with that. And then it will serve that. Find beingness. Find pure awareness as self. Even just in Satori, fall in love with that and give that your totality. Because it's a love affair that occurs between the mind and truth that allows the mind to surrender unconditionally, really. It's in that love affair that the mind's willing to die for truth, really. And so you can come and sit in the presence of someone who's awake, which is what I did. And after a while, I fell in love with the presence. I fell in love with the beauty. And eventually I realized what I'd fallen in love with wasn't a man or a woman sitting holding satsang. It was beingness. My mind had fallen in love with beingness. And in that love affair, it learnt to surrender. In that love affair, it died. Unconditional surrender is a death. It's the death of the I. And awareness can then stay on itself. Beingness can then stay on itself quite easily. Then there is no two anymore. There's not a you and a me anymore. There's just one, just here. Different aspects of the one. And so keep turning awareness back to itself and fall in love from the mind's perspective, fall in love with truth. And then you'll do whatever it takes to support it.
Next, we have Art, who would like to ask a question.
Hi, Vishrant.
Hello, Art.
So I had an experience where I was, well, first let me say, there's this distinction we talked about last week between experiencing beingness, seeing, feeling, whatever that is, perceiving it, feeling it, and knowing self as beingness. And I've had some of both. A few days ago, I really realized, or at least took myself to be the beingness, almost looking down or whatever at art. But most of the time I take myself to be art, and I'm sort of looking into the abyss, was one way you put it the other day. Is there really nothing I can do to experience myself as it more? Because it certainly feels like a much healthier, definitely more pleasant state.
You can start looking.
Yeah,
it does. I understand your question. And
okay.
Start looking at the helper thoughts, the ones that try to advise you, the ones that try to let you know what's happening, how deep you've gone, or how gone you are, or how any thought that comes from the mind to support awakening will be an obstacle to awakening, because awareness will go back to the thought. And so don't touch the mind. Really, don't touch the mind. Let it go. If it rambles on, just witness it, but don't get involved in it. And
so it really can't help me to be the awareness.
It can ask the question, who's aware? But the moment it starts measuring, the moment it starts thinking that it can help, it's in the way. And that's how the ego survives, by becoming helper thoughts.
So even this question is, in some sense, in the way, in a way. Yeah.
Just when awakening was starting to occur here, I noticed the helper thoughts, the measuring, even the self-inquiry to some degree. And I saw quite clearly that they were also in the way, that really no mind is best. And so I just didn't entertain the mind. If the mind came up, I just didn't entertain it. I witnessed it, but I didn't entertain it. Because I could see that the moment of entertaining it, awareness goes back to the mind.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And in the early stages of enlightenment, from my perspective, it's a fragile situation. Awareness can flip-flop back and forward quite easily from itself to back to the mind, to back to itself, to back to the mind. And so the best the mind can do is be quiet. And then awareness locks onto itself. And it can't come off. It just locks on. But that takes a certain amount of time or practice. I don't really understand the whole process. I just saw it happening, that one day it was so locked on, there was no way it was going to come off. It's no matter what happened, it was just locked on. But in the early stages, it was fragile. It could quite easily have slipped back. And
How long did it take to get there? Was it like a year you did after you found awareness that second time after the 11 years?
Yeah.
Till it locked on.
About a year. But what was happening was there were Satori's every day. There was probably a couple of thousand Satori's in that year. And there was this recognition that there was something bringing awareness back to the mind. And it was the mind was talking to itself. It was trying to help. And I got to see clearly it was in the way. It was actually in the way. And so I stopped entertaining all thought. Don't touch the mind at all. Don't touch the mind. And let awareness lock onto itself.
I really appreciate you. I stumbled on you at just the right time about 3 months ago. Thanks for everything.
Happy to help, Art.
The next question is from a viewer. How can self-hypnosis remove obstacles to awakening? May you talk about your inner child self-hypnosis method?
Yeah, okay. I got into the inner child work long time ago in the 80s, even before it became popular, recognizing that a lot of the damage that was inside of me was represented by images of children who were at that age when the damage occurred. And I would start going back in my mind to those places as an adult and go and visit that child and actually tell that child that I was there for it, and it would never need to be alone again. It would never need to deal with this stuff again. I was there for it. And something melted in me with this. When the child felt that was representing whatever trauma it was, felt supported and nurtured and not alone, it started to relax. And in the relaxation, the trauma started to heal. And the thing about that is if we have a very traumatized psyche, we're going to react strongly to the world from time to time. And if we are starting to wake up, awareness is going to go back to the trauma. It's going to go back to the contraction. So it's really good to heal the wounds of our heart. It's really good to heal trauma. Doing self-hypnosis and going back to the different stages in life where we were traumatized in some way or another, and going back as an adult and supporting that inner child definitely helped for me, definitely allowed my mind to heal and relax, to open up and relax. And so I do recommend it to people if they are interested in healing the wounds of their heart to do the inner child work.
The next question has been written by Usha. Namaste, Vishrant. For awareness to lock onto itself permanently, does it require grace?
Yes, I would say that's true. And any time you hear me saying the word grace, what I'm really saying is I don't know. Things by grace, yes, I don't know. That's a better way of putting it. There's you can do everything right. You can heal the wounds of your heart. You can slow the mind right down. You can be in meditation all the time, which means present to reality all the time. You can be self-inquiring, and you can still not wake up, because there is another ingredient, and that is karma. And you don't know. You just don't know you don't know how good your karma is or how bad it is. You just have to be willing to accept whatever is. And in that willingness to accept whatever is, the mind relaxes and puts itself in a better position for enlightenment. It is in a relaxed, open, vulnerable state of the mind that unconditional surrender happens and that enlightenment happens. It's all about being relaxed from the mind's perspective.
The following question has been written in an email to you by Brendan. Dear Vishrant, I have been meditating a lot this past 5 years, and as a result, I have become very blissful, almost all of the time, which has no cause. Despite feeling bliss a lot of the time, I know this is not awakening, or at least not full awakening. There is definitely a self still left in me. But there also feels like there is nothing more I can do except for to remain aware of awareness for full awakening, which brings up a huge fear of death. Did you pass through this fear of death yourself? And did you also feel like there was nothing you could do? I would love to hear your experience and how you passed through this stage on your path. I have so much gratitude for all your help. Much love to you, Brendan.
Okay, Brendan. First of all, yes, if you meditate, you will find bliss. And people quite often settle for bliss because it's a nice experience. If we're looking to find who we truly are, we need to discover what's aware of the bliss. And so it is lovely to have bliss, but what does this bliss appear in? What is the background? What is aware of it? As far as the fear of death is concerned, yeah, well, if you're starting to wake up, the eye's going to die, and it knows it. And so it can throw up terror because fear is its main survival mechanism. So unconsciously, it'll throw up fear to survive. And you've got to go, okay, I'll die. Okay, you got to make it okay. I was fortunate in some ways because I started practicing this when I was very young, because I was a martial artist. And as a martial artist, I needed to be okay with death and mutilation because I was doing full contact martial arts. And that was always a possibility. And if you're frightened of that, the fear itself has already defeated you before you step into the ring. And so I was making it okay to die at a very young age. And so when it came to looking at the abyss and the mind realizing, well, this is it, it's all over, I'm going to die. And of course, it doesn't think that, but that's the feeling. And terror arises. I just had to be okay with the terror and the dying. Just make it all okay. In the okayness, something drops. So terror arises, don't fight it, just make it okay. Fear arises, don't fight it, just make it okay. Okayness is the antidote to everything. It's up to you. Don't get caught in bliss. Find out what's aware of it. Ask the question, what's aware? Keep going, keep going, keep going until there's nothing left.
The next question has been written by Afisha. Hello, Vishrant. How do you know when you have found who you truly are?
There's nobody there. See, people think they're going to find something, and that's the tricky bit. What happens is there's more of an absence than anything else. Because when awareness is aware of itself, the mind has dropped, the ego has dropped. So there's an absence of the somebody. And so it's more a noticing of the absence, if any, more than anything else. There's just nobody here. There's talking, but there's nobody talking. And so we have this sense of a somebody being here because we're thinking. We're thinking about the future. We're thinking about the past. We're analyzing. But that all drops. And there's nothing here. Just pure awareness. And that is profoundly different than being ego-based. So it can't really be missed.
The next question is from a viewer. I've been inserting doubt into the belief system beneath the resentment, but the emotion is persistent. What else can I do?
I wonder what the emotion is. Is it anger or is it sadness? I wonder. just make it okay. Whatever's there, make it okay. Because if it's repressed emotionality, it probably needs to leave the body. And in making it okay, it will leave. In actually warmly welcoming it, it will leave. And so you may have undone the belief systems, but the load that was created while they were in play, the pain body, may still be there. And so now just make it okay for you to feel whatever's there. Be okay with what is. Warmly welcome it. Let it go, like an old friend that's leaving. It's okay. Nothing to do, really. Just make it okay.
They have added that the emotion is anger.
So anger is a defense system. So that's a little bit different. That's a little bit more difficult to deal with, because anger itself, underneath the anger, there'll be something else. There'll be a hurt. And the anger is stopping you from feeling the hurt. Because in anger, we feel empowered. In the hurt, we feel disempowered and helpless, quite often hopeless. So anger defends us from feeling that. It's a defense system. And it keeps us contracted. And one more thing, anger usually demands a story of some kind. We have to be a victim to be angry. We have to be blaming something or someone or ourselves, but we have to be blaming. Otherwise, anger doesn't have a great deal of power. It's powered, it's fueled by blame. And so have a look. Are you still blaming somewhere? If not, and there's just anger, just the feeling of anger, just let it be there. Be okay with it. It's something that's leaving. It's okay. But be aware that it is a defense system and there may be something under it.
The next question has been written by a viewer. I came across a guy on social media who's not really famous, but in my opinion, a phenomenal artist. I see myself constantly thinking about him, fantasizing about who I think he is and how perfect he is. When I meditate regularly, the thoughts about him become less and less, but I still have this deep desire to one day be noticed by him. I really want to learn how to live without forming mental fantasies, the need of approval and recognition from the opposite sex. How do I do this?
You always begin with acceptance. You begin with accepting that's how you are. You begin by accepting the patterning and the programming that's there. And this patterning and programming is doing what it's doing and you're witnessing it. But always begin with acceptance. Always. And then watch it. Just witness it. Just witness how it works. Witness what it does. Witness its agendas. Witness its stories. Witness its belief systems. Be the witness of the mind, but from a place of absolute acceptance. And from that place, your mind will show itself in its totality to you. And when we truly see what's going on inside our own minds, we have raised our consciousness levels. And because we've raised our consciousness levels, we don't need to get caught in some things anymore because we can see clearly we're banging our head on the wall. And so we stop because we can see. But it begins with okayness of what is. And then if we just witness, just watch and see how it all works. This is brilliant.
The next question, was the quietening of your mind a slow, gradual process, or was it a result of perceiving beingness?
Yeah. Okay, my mind wasn't that busy before awakening because I wasn't really into entertaining drama. I liked reality. I was a meditator and I enjoyed reality more than I enjoyed thinking. And so it wasn't so hard. When awakening occurred, the mind spoke to itself for probably another 6 months. But it was like in the beginning, it was in the room talking and you could hear it. After a week or so, it was in another room. It was further away. You could hear it, but there's no attention being paid to it. And after another week, it was further away again in another room, further away. And so even though it took 6 months to probably quieten right down to nothing, it was going further and further away as the detachment from it was greater and greater and greater. And there wasn't an interest. The mind itself wasn't interested in itself. It was interested in beingness. It was in adoration of beingness, in service to beingness. And in service to beingness, it was being as quiet as it could, because it was absolutely in love with beingness, the beloved. So it did take a while. It took a while. But as a meditator, it already shut up to a fair extent. Reality is brilliant. Dreaming is not brilliant. It actually just causes suffering usually. The more you can get into reality, the better. Meditation simply means being aware of what's real. The only thing that's not real is what you think. So it's up to you.
The following question has been written by Usha. When my awareness is locked onto itself and there is just beingness, there is just freedom and contentment. You say that is enlightenment. Is it that simple? Sometimes when a satori is experienced, I just laugh and say, is it that simple?
Well, enlightenment is when awareness is locked onto itself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Satori is when it locks on for a bit and then can't you go back to ego-based reality. That's Satori. It's like a glimpse of the truth. And anyone can have a glimpse of the truth at any time because we are the truth. It's not somewhere else. But enlightenment is a continuation of that Satori. And so someone who's enlightened is in Satori 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not held in memory. Memory is dream. Memory is lower consciousness again. You have a Satori and you remember it, you're just dreaming. Someone who's awake is in Satori 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
You mentioned it is okay to have things while pursuing truth, if we are not attached. Many teachers say sex is unique and should be avoided. Is this always true, usually true, or what?
Not in my experience. It's just another thing that people get attached to. It's a primal program for the reproduction of the species. It's a survival mechanism. And we're primarily programmed to be attached to it. But like everything else, it can be accepted and let go. I'm not against sex. I'm not for sex. Sex is natural. It's okay. Just don't get attached to it. It's the same as anything else. Just don't get attached. Do your best to stay free. Because if we're really attached to something, if we addictively demand that we have it, we create such a contraction inside our own psyche that even if we're in Satori, awareness would go back to the ego that's contracting, that wants what it wants and is addictively demanding it. Everything has to be accepted, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In that acceptance, we can rest, the mind can rest. And having a restful mind is the optimum for higher consciousness and the optimum for enlightenment.
The next question has been written by Gent on YouTube. I've become aware of my thoughts. Now I think it has become a bit difficult to transcend them because I'm constantly checking, if I'm okay or if my thoughts are there. How to achieve no mind?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just checking is going into thought. How about just watching the breath and walking? So I used to do a lot of walking, and I'd watch my footfalls. That's where my feet were hitting the ground. I'd be aware of that. I'd be aware of my breath at my nose as I was walking. So I was aware of two things, my footfalls and my breath. Then I'd become aware of what I could see and what I could smell and what I could feel, whether the wind was on my face, whether the sun was on my face. And when I became aware of all of these things at once, I couldn't think, because if I had thought, my mind would leave some of these things. And so I used to walk and be aware of these things. And I called it walking in Zen. And I loved it. I love walking, particularly on beaches. Walking in Zen, just being aware of the footfalls, the breath, the sound of the surf, the seagulls, the wind on my face, the sun on my shoulder. There was no room to thought. For thought, I just was in the moment. It was beautiful. Just put your awareness on what is real, and put your awareness on a few things that are real, and there is no room for thought. Because if you have thoughts, you're going to lose awareness of what's real. Practice walking in Zen. It's really nice.
The next question is no mind a trick, in that we don't have to fight or strive for that. Just let the thoughts be and watch.
Eventually that can happen. Yeah, eventually if you just witness, you'll see enough not to want to be involved in it. So you could say it is a trick, but I was very active in being present. I really, really did like being present. At a young age, I looked around me and I could see that people who lived in their heads just suffered incredibly, the dramas that they carried on. And most of that drama is related to victim-orientated thinking. And so I just decided I wanted to live in reality. I gave up victim-orientated thinking completely and practiced being present to what is real, because it's so peaceful to be with what's real. There's no peace being inside your head, not really, because you're programmed for problem solving. The idea is to get back to reality, away from the matrix of the mind, because that's the problem. There is no other problem, really. It's your dreaming that's the problem. Just put awareness on what is real. Don't have to think about it. Just put awareness on what is real and stay aware of what is real.
The next question is from a viewer. I heard that sex causes energy and memory exchange, which causes changes in our personality and habits. So, if we have sex with lower consciousness people, do we stay more in lower consciousness?
I'm not going to go anywhere near answering that question. Even if I did answer it, it would just be my opinions anyway. We are pure beingness. We are pure awareness. Find that. Doesn't matter what the body does or doesn't do, really. Find that is aware of the body, that's aware of sex. Find that and be free. Up to you. You're the one that's going to be looking. If you put your awareness on sexuality, well, you'll live as that. You put your awareness on beingness, you live as that. And there's a huge difference between living as beingness and living as sex. Putting awareness on sex is a story of frustration, fulfillment, frustration, fulfillment, frustration, fulfillment. Put awareness on awareness, and there is just peace, because that is our true nature.
Art has written a comment. Hi Vishrant, this is a comment only. Beingness seems so huge and palpable and present, not conceiving, not perceiving, just presence itself, just being. I can no longer even understand how I could not have recognized it.
Okay.
Next.
Can we wait a tick? When you find beingness as self and you decide that you want to share it with the world because you're a light, you feel like you're the man standing by the river selling water to people who are going past when all they have to do themselves is come down the river and get a drink. Yes.
The next question was written by Usha. How can we be aware of different things all at once?
Try it and see. So right now, I can be aware of this hand, and I can be aware of this hand. I can be aware of my breath. I can be aware of my own voice. I can be aware of the chair I'm sitting in while aware of my hands, my breath, and my voice. Why not? It's called ambient awareness. Walking in Zen is the practice of ambient awareness.
The next question is written by Gent. Is meditation a tool to transcend our mind or imagination and be more aware and present? And how much time does one have to meditate to achieve stillness?
I don't like the word transcend much. There's reality and then there's dream. We're not trying to transcend dream. You can't transcend something that's not real in the first place. But what you can do is put your awareness on something that is real, which is what meditation is. If we're doing a traditional Buddhist meditation where we're watching the breath, we're just putting awareness on the breath. We're just putting awareness on what is real. That's all we're doing. It's not about transcending anything. You can't transcend a dream, not really. Dreams aren't real. Put awareness on what's real. And everything's real except what you think. The breath is handy because if you're alive, you're breathing and it's real. So you put your awareness on it. Thoughts come in, drop those, come back to the breath. Don't entertain the thoughts. Stay with the breath. This is meditation, or this is the practice of meditation. True meditation is being present to reality.
The following questions from a viewer. If I'm ambient awarenessing, I notice my external sight being more blurry. Am I doing it right?
Yes, absolutely. With ambient awareness, you're not focused. Your mind's relaxed and your eyes are relaxed, so you're not focused. And so in looking at a room full of people when I'm talking, people quite often think that I'm talking to them or them or them, but really it's just ambient awareness. I'm talking to everyone because my mind's relaxed, my eyes are relaxed. It's just ambient awareness. And awareness is not just aware of the people and what they're doing and saying, and all of them, it's also aware of itself. And so there's like having one foot in and one foot out.
Do you think that renouncing life and becoming a monk is the fastest way to become enlightened?
I don't know. What I do know is that someone who lives in the marketplace, who has a family, who has a job, can wake up. That I do know. Now, whether it's easier to do that wake up in a monastery or an ashram, or easier to wake up in the marketplace, I can't actually talk about it because I never have lived in a monastery. I have been in the marketplace. I have practiced the meditations. I've practiced the asanas. I've practiced the self-inquiry. I've practiced openness in the marketplace while having a family and while holding down a job. And so from my perspective, I'm here to teach lay people who are interested in waking up while in the marketplace. So I can't really make a comment. whether it's faster or easier or better to make up in a monastery, because it's not my experience.
The following question is from a YouTube viewer. I contract most when I need to take action. For example, building my business or exercise. What can I do to remove these blocks, and how do you properly integrate material success with spiritual success?
Okay, it's easier said than done, but you don't be attached to the spirit, to either the spiritual success or the financial success. The attachment is what keeps you locked in lower consciousness, nothing else. You can be spiritually successful, if you want to call it spiritual success, which means basically you've risen, your consciousness levels are risen. You can be financially successful, which basically means your bank balance is bigger or your property holdings are bigger. The attachment to them is the problem, nothing else. You can do whatever you like. It's the attachment that causes the problems. Don't be attached and be free, or be attached and be in prison. If you're frightened of losing what you've got, you're probably attached to it. Let it go. Doesn't mean that you actually have to physically let it go, but in your mind, you let it go. And you keep operating, you keep moving forward. And so just because we let things go doesn't make us redundant. We can do everything from a place of acceptance. Just try it and see.
I can see that my anger and blame is hiding helplessness, as you mentioned. That seems scary to face. What now?
Get brave. Or suffer longer and watch it more until you come to a point of witnessing it where you become willing to meet it. At some point, you'll get sick of the suffering that's created by not doing something about it, and you'll do something about it. But that's going to be up to you. One of my teachers used to say to people who are a bit stuck is they just haven't suffered enough. And in some ways it's true. It's like if we truly see that we're creating our own suffering and that we have a choice not to, if we truly see it, we'll probably stop it.
The next question has been written by Gent. So basically, overcoming and transcending are tasks that derive from ego.
Yes. Yeah, beingness doesn't do anything. Beingness doesn't do a thing. It does absolutely zilch. The only thing that can do something is the mind. And the best thing it can do is get out of the way. But this idea of transcending, I don't like the word, because it's not that we're transcending anything. We're just discovering what is real. That's not a transcendence. It's already there. We just have to discover it. The only thing that's not real is what we think, our minds. And so the mind starts to look for what is real. And ultimately, the best way to do that is to turn that that's aware of the mind onto itself.
Is it possible to serve truth prior to awakening?
Heck yeah. I started serving truth in the 80s. When I was with Rajneesh, I started serving the commune. I started serving Osho when I was at the ranch in Pune, and I was involved in the publishing of one of his books, but I was in service. Anybody that was interested in truth at that stage of my life, I'd head them towards Osho, I'd head them towards his teachings, being in service of truth. I wasn't setting myself up as an advisor in those days, because I thought Osho really did it well. And so I serve truth by turning people on to Osho from time to time. I serve truth by working for the commune. And then when the Advaita Vedanta teachers came in the late 90s, I served them. I hosted them. I hosted some of the ones that came here, and I served them and helping them in publishing as well. And continuing to serve people by turning them towards satsang. So yes, you can definitely serve truth before enlightenment. Anybody that's teaching the Dharma is serving truth. Anybody that's helping someone who's teaching the Dharma is serving truth.
What would you say is the most significant lifestyle change you made that then led to enlightenment?
The most significant lifestyle change I made is I walked in one day and gave all my companies to my staff, because I could see clearly that for me as a businessman, the way my mind was programmed, it wasn't going to work. And higher consciousness was calling. And I could see that my warlike nature as a businessman was in the way of my heart and in the way of awakening. So I consciously chose to give it all away and pursue heart. And that was a major change in life, because it meant giving away a multi-million-dollar company and becoming a bum and walking around Australia as a bum for 4 years in search of my heart. And I have never had one regret at doing that.
Once you know about what it takes to go for enlightenment, can you really be happy just living a mundane life?
The point of no return, when you know too much. It is best if you start this journey that you finish it, because you can get quite bitter and discontent if you put a lot of effort into it and you don't finish it. And so anybody that starts should finish. It's best. There's nothing better than raising your consciousness levels. And there's nothing better than finding heart. Not really. It's so beautiful to love. And in raising our consciousness levels, we remove all the obstacles that are in the way of heart. So we start to serve heart too, which is very beautiful. But that's up to you. What do you serve? Who do you serve? I found that self-service was dissatisfying. And that in service of heart, I found what I referred to as manageable happiness. The beauty of being in service, the beauty of taking care of others, the beauty of taking care of plants, animals, the planet. It's just lovely. Whereas self-obsession, taking care of self, is not lovely. In selfless service, we start setting ourselves up for enlightenment, because we're removing the problem. We're removing the I. It's up to you. What do you serve? Who do you serve? Does it bring you happiness? If it doesn't, well, you're probably on the wrong path.
The following questions from a viewer. Does that mean you saw that you were attached to your businesses? You were saying we can do anything but not have attachments.
Yeah, I was attached to even though I'd retired years before, I was still running them remotely from actually England at the time. And I knew I could feel this connection, this cord that I had with them. And it was keeping me in a state of mind that was semi-warlike, because business at a high level is war. And I didn't want it. I had been programmed to be like that in my schooling. I'd done a myriad of courses to get better and bigger, better and more powerful. And it was all in action. And I just needed to not be in action. I needed to do nothing. I needed to have that not in my life anymore. And I'm not saying that other people can't keep their businesses. That's fine. It's just for me, the way I'd been programmed, I needed to get rid of it. I needed to go. I could see clearly it was an obstacle in my way.
Next question has been written by Gent. Thank you for your simple answers. I would like to know about meditation. What is the best technique for beginners?
You know, it's hard just to sit down and watch the breath unless you've done a fair bit of it. The best method of meditation is walking, because if we're walking and we're aware of everything outside ourselves but not our thoughts, we're in meditation. If we can put our awareness on our breath while we're walking, if we can put our awareness on our footfalls when we're walking, as we walk, and our visuals, more than likely that will be enough to keep us in meditation. The only time we move out of meditation is when we start thinking again and we have our awareness on thoughts. But if we can put our awareness on enough things that are real while in action, we're in meditation. And we're starting to get an idea of what it's like to be in meditation again, because up until about 4 or 5, we were in meditation. As little kids, we were present to reality. We weren't dreaming yet. We weren't problem solving yet. We weren't projecting as much yet. And so it's like going back to a childlike state where we're in wonderment with the world, because we're not thinking about it, we're with it. And in the beginning, the walking meditation is very effective. And from that, you can go to the sitting meditation. But with the sitting meditation, I found that Rajneesh's active meditations, dynamic meditation, and Kundalini meditation were really excellent, because they helped clear the energy of the day before I was able to sit. And when we clear all the energy of the day, we can sit and then really relax and be with what's real, in this case, a breath. And so you can begin with walking meditation. That's a nice meditation. And nobody needs to know you're meditating. You're just walking. You don't do it with earpods, listening to music. You just listen to nature, and you just see nature, and you feel nature, and you feel your breath, and you feel your footfalls. And now you're with reality. You're moved away from the matrix of the mind. You're in meditation. It's an active meditation. If you want to do other meditations, the Rajneesh meditation of dynamic and Kundalini are really effective. I did them for years. They're really effective. It's up to you. They keep you fit as well. It's up to you. Meditation is the way out of the matrix of the mind. It's the best thing you can do for you. Thank you for Satsang. Good to see you brave hearts here today.